when Russia intervenes in Kazakhstan, it creates problems for not just India, but more importantly for China also, right?
Subscribe and press the bell icon so you never miss an update from PrepLadder.
Collective Security Treaty Organization, whose clauses have been invoked by Russia to finally justify its intervention in Kazakhstan, although the Kazakhstan leadership invited the Russian troops over there, right? So, Collective Security Treaty Organization was created in 1994, change the color of the pen, there you go. So, it was set up in 1994, it was earlier called Collective Security Treaty, later renamed as the Collective Security Treaty Organization, often referred to as the Eurasian NATO, right? Its members, look at the members over here, it has Russia, look at Belarus is also here, Armenia and Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan. So, three members from, three countries from Central Asia are also members of the CSTO, right. Now, what are Russian interests in this lesser known organization? Although of course, it is an important organization, but not much heard of, right. And until you know this intervention using the clauses of this treaty organization, this treaty, wherein Kazakhstan's leadership invited Russia and Russian troops also intervened in the situation that developed in the recent past in Kazakhstan, which was basically a lot of countrywide protests started taking place in response to the hike in fuel prices over there. And then those protests morphed into all kind of airing of all kind of social grievances, political grievances, democratic deficit grievances, etc., etc. Right. So, what are Russian interests in CSTO? First, CSTO. Firstly, it is a tool for it to tighten its grip on Central Asia. Three of the Central Asian countries are over here, right. So, it can use it to tighten its grip over Central Asia, especially against the designs of China and more importantly USA as well, right. Secondly, this treaty is used by it to justify its own military presence in Central Asian countries, and also not just to justify its own military presence in Central Asian countries, but also to veto the presence of third countries' military presence in their country, in these countries which are a part of CSTO, right. So, firstly, through this, it can tighten its grip over Central Asia against and reduce the influence of USA and China, in particular China also over there. Plus, it can using this treaty, it can justify its military presence, because that is allowed under this treaty, much like NATO allies also have US troops, many NATO countries have US troops and US military equipment stationed in their on their territory, right. To justify its military presence in Central Asia and also have the power to veto the presence of military presence of third countries in the CSTO in Central Asian countries. Then it is easier for it therefore to sell arms. One of the biggest exports of Russia is obviously hydrocarbons. But then their economy is hanging by the shoestring, and a lot of support comes to them when big countries like India also purchase arms from them, including these countries. Easier for it to sell arms. And then you know, there is this, I think in the context of Ukraine crisis, you must have listened to some news, documentaries, read some articles also, that this Mr. Putin is, you know, following this old idea of reviving the great Russian empire, the so-called idea of greater Russia, right. So, he is trying to do so with respect to Ukraine on that side. He is trying to do the same thing with respect to Kazakhstan on this side. And you know, much like you know, Putin does not regard Ukraine to be a real nation, right? It's always a part of Russia. There is a similar perspective that Putin also holds for Kazakhstan. It's not a real nation, it's a part of Russia only, right? So, CSTO also enables it to give effect to Putin's own grand desires of the greater Russia project, right? Now, in the recent past, we saw that you know, there was intervention in Kazakhstan, and at the invitation of the Kazakhstan leadership only. So, unstable conditions over there. Now, when Russia intervenes in Kazakhstan, it creates problems for not just India, but more importantly for China also, right. So, what are its concerns? If Kazakhstan becomes unstable, many of its routes under BRI, they go through Kazakhstan, they'll become vulnerable. Secondly, Kazakhstan, much like India, Kazakhstan is the biggest trade partner of China in the region. India's biggest trade partner in the region is also Kazakhstan only. And if this happens, so then the grip of Russia on the entire region also increases. The Central Asian region was as such, you know, getting inclined most economically at least, getting inclined towards China, because China's economy is very vibrant, as opposed to Russian economy, which is practically nothing. Russian economy size at 1.4 trillion is less than half of the size of Indian economy also, right. So, if this happens, then it would also lead to reduction in the influence of China in the whole Central Asian region. And if this continues, in the sense that, you know, if Russia uses this intervention in Kazakhstan as a springboard for similar interventions in other countries also of the region, so Russian influence would wane, so dramatically you can't imagine, right? Then India's concerns, some common concerns like Kazakhstan is India's biggest trade partner, and if Kazakhstan becomes very unstable because of this Russian troops presence over there, then what about our uranium supplies? It is the biggest supplier of uranium to us, and then a number of Indian students are studying in Kazakhstan. A crisis like Ukraine may be unfolding over here also, right? And if this happens, Russia as such is, becoming very hostile to the West. And then if this entire region becomes to be dominated by the Russians through its military misadventurism, I mean, what will happen to India's overall Central Asia Connect policy? Because if this entire region comes under Russian influence, and if India does not toe the line of Russia with respect to the West, we are doing so to some extent, but we cannot go beyond a certain point, right? So if this region comes under Russian influence completely, and India does not toe the line of the Russians, then Russians may discourage these countries to engage with strategically or economically with India. So our entire, so this is something in the nature of speculation that I am making over here, that India's Central Asia policy may get derailed. So such interventions by Russia, whether in Ukraine or earlier in Kazakhstan, they have some very ominous portents for not just China, but not just for India, but even for China for that matter. But this is just prognostication and speculation as to what might happen. But we are concerned about these things, right?